This episode is sponsored by Ginja 9, the Portuguese sour cherry liqueur from Albiluz, Portugal. Crafted by hand, made with love. For more information, visit www.ginja9.com.
Welcome to our Portuguese Table podcast. I'm Maria Lawton, the Azorean Green Bean.
And I'm Angela Simoes, and we're just two chicks dishing about Portuguese food, culture, and what it means to be Portuguese.
So grab a glass of vinho or copo de café and join us as we talk about our favorite foods, reminisce about growing up Portuguese,
and interview some of our community's most successful chefs and food writers.
So sit down at our Portuguese table.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Portuguese table. Angela and I are thrilled to have Milena Rodrigues here with us today. And Milena is the author of For the Love of Portuguese Food, which is also a Facebook page. And we're just really happy to have you. Welcome, Milena.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to speak to both of you and tell everyone a little bit about myself.
Yeah. I mean, for those that don't know Milena, could you just give us a little background? Like, I know that obviously you're one of the Portuguese girls here.
Yes.
Where your family is from, where it all began. We can start there.
Sure. Yes, my family is originally from Figueira da Foz, which is located in central Portugal, north of Lisbon and south of Porto. I was born here in the United States. My parents immigrated in 1966 with my two sisters. They were already fairly grown, I think about like 12 and 13, about that age. They're like a year and a half apart. So it was just them. They came to Gloucester. My dad was a fisherman. He was a cod fisherman, a sardine fisherman in Portugal for many, many years. Started fishing at the age of 13. And they came over for obviously looking for, they didn't have a bad life in Portugal, not at all, but for new opportunities here in the United States. We had an uncle here that had come in through Newfoundland. He was also a cod fisherman. And then he called my mother over and she came over at that time and her parents were here as well. And a few years later, I was born. I was unexpected. So
unexpected? Don't say that. No. You were a pleasant surprise. A pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. But my sister used to joke and say I was a mistake, but it was a big joke. But I was a pleasant surprise, yes. So I was born in Gloucester, Mass. And I was born and raised in the United States. I lived here all my life, but my sisters were very Portuguese because they came over fairly grown. So we lived in Gloucester a few years. A few years later, we moved to New Bedford because my dad, many times, his boat would unload the fish here in New Bedford. So my mother would have to come here to pick him up. And a lot of the families we knew in Gloucester had moved to New Bedford. So we came here. The funny story is both my sisters went for a ride around the beach in New Bedford. There was a house for sale. They liked it. They brought my mother there. My mother put a deposit on the house. Then we moved to New Bedford. That's basically how we ended up in New Bedford. My mother borrowed $100 from her friend to put a deposit on the house. It's just hysterical.
Oh, sheesh.
Yeah. And that's how we ended up in New Bedford. But my sisters and my parents always maintained a very strong connection to Portugal. Mm-hmm. And my sisters, when I was 6 years old, both got married 2 weeks apart in Portugal. And wow. And they both stayed there. So I was left here alone with my parents and a lot of times alone with my mom because my dad was a fisherman. He'd go out for, 10, 14 days. And I was brought up almost like an only child. But then one of my sisters did move back. But that left one of my sisters there, which was great because my mother would always send me to Portugal. My sister was much older than me. She was 16 years older and she could almost be like my mother. And she was. And so I would go back. I had my grandmother there. She eventually passed, but my sister was still there. So my mother sent me every year, whether or not my parents went, they would send me. And
That's
so
wonderful.
I grew up immersed in the culture. I always was very, very proud to be Portuguese, even at a time when maybe saying that you're Portuguese was not very popular. that never affected me. I was always very proud because I knew how amazing it was because I used to spend every summer there. And as soon as school was done, I used to go spend San João, and then stay there till school started. And I have wonderful memories, wonderful experiences. And as I got older, of course, my mother said, I'm not going to pay for your trips anymore to Portugal. So I used to work all through the school year, save all my money, and go for 2 months.
So how old were you? How old were you when you started going for the summers? Because
I was 1.5.
Oh my gosh! So my husband
and
did the same thing, and he used to say that when he was little, like he would actually kind of miss being here, right? Because all his friends were doing summer sports.
Yeah.
So was it kind of the same for you? But then he got older and was like, no, I really want to go. So it's funny.
I don't remember missing being here in the summer. It just was. I had so much fun. My older sister, she was like my mother, and she wouldn't stop. My sister did not stop. She loved the Portuguese lifestyle, going to the cafe, going to the beach, San João. I used to go, I went in the marcha once holding the banner in the front. Cool. It was like I lived there for 2 months. I was completely immersed in the culture with her there. So I always looked forward to that time because I had a very strong bond with my sister. And, sometimes my parents would go too, but my sister was, I was her little shadow. She would take me everywhere. And I was very well behaved. So her friends didn't mind. They'd take me everywhere with them, if they'd go swimming in the lagoa, if they'd go to the beach. It was just a ton of fun. We used to go to the serra, have sardinhadas. It was just, I loved it. And as I got older, of course, I loved it even more because I liked the lifestyle there, the social life, the going out. It was safe at night. I could go to the clubs. I could go out with my friends used to come over with me. We'd travel to Portugal. We'd take train rides at midnight to the Algarve. And I remember once, the windows were down in the train, and it was so cold. We had our beach towels and the beach blankets. Another time I went with another friend to the Algarve, and we got stuck in the Alentejo because the bus broke down, and it must have been 100 degrees, and we couldn't stand it. We hitchhiked to the Algarve. We were on our way to Albufeira. We ended up in Portimão because that's where the driver was going. It was safe. I did all those things, and I just loved it. I could go there, and I could just, I felt free. And that's why I always loved Portugal. And still today, I go there with my family, and I feel safe there. I feel at home. I feel like I belong. And every time I leave, I feel like there's always that little piece of me that stays behind. So even though I was not born there and I was born here, I know what that saudade is for those people that left Portugal behind. I never left it behind, but every time I go and come back, I feel like I leave a piece of myself behind. And so it's important for me to stay connected to the culture in every way. We're part of the social clubs, the Portuguese social clubs here, the food, the parties. We just continue a lot of the tradition here at home and with friends, our group of friends as well.
Now, back in Portugal, do you still have family there when you do go back in the summer?
Yeah, now my oldest sister eventually moved here as well. And then a few years ago, she moved back. She retired with my brother-in-law, and now she lives there. So we have her there. I have some cousins, but I do have a condo there as well, right in Rodrigues, Figueira da Foz, which is walking distance from the beach, which is, for me, that's heaven. That's my little piece of heaven. And so when I go, I have a place to stay, which is huge. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
You go there, and it's like my second home. I have my things there, I have my furniture, and it's just, when I get there and I put my bags down, it's home. I don't feel like I'm in a hotel room or I'm in someone's space, or I don't have to worry about, coming in too late, or, is someone going to be home to open the door? It's like, it's my space. So I still love going back, and we take our girls back. They've gone to Portugal. I started sending them every year. Well, not sending them, taking them at the age of 1, just like me, about 1 and 3 months with both of them for the first time. And my oldest has been there, I think, 12 or 13 times, and she's 14 years old.
Wow. So the tradition continues.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. They have a lot of fun, especially if we try to hook up with friends over there, because I'm from Figueira, and there's a lot of people from Figueira da Foz here. So we try to hook up with friends over there. And when we do, they have a blast. So we really enjoy it.
That's
Definitely.
Awesome. That is awesome.
So I know you spent your summers there, but any desire to make the move like your sister did?
Definitely when we see, the thing is I had kids kind of late. So, but when we retire, we would love to spend like 3 to 4 months. But my young one she's still just 8 years old. So by the time she's done with college and settled in life, it's still going to be a while, but I do hope to spend maybe between 3 and 6 months there, depending, definitely the whole summer. I would like to do that, but when they're settled and, taken care of and done with college and all that, I wouldn't want to leave them here, for an extended period of time.
You still have a long way home, Milena.
Yeah, it's still very, very far.
Well, you just have to convince her to go to college in Portugal.
Maybe. Well, that happened to my husband's niece, and she got married this year, and she's living there, and it does happen.
There you go.
So
it's a lot cheaper.
That's true. A lot cheaper.
College is a lot more affordable there, but the job situation, it's nothing compared to here. The opportunities, it's not even close. So I'm not going to push them to go there.
Right.
I think I would like them to get their education here and get a job here, because I think their future, the opportunities are just, I love Portugal and I love America. There's good things about both and bad things. And I think as far as opportunities, America is the place to be, and I hope they take advantage of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, it's a good point. And not to digress too much, because we totally have so much to cover about your book. But I will just say from experience, the Portuguese that I've met here in Silicon Valley that went to college in Portugal and then have come out here to work, they're super successful, especially in the tech realm. I don't know that it's a problem. Yeah. I don't know that's been a problem really. And the fact that she's already an American citizen, she won't have to worry about the visa issue. Anyway, I digress a little bit, but I wouldn't completely. Yeah, she can go to college there and then just come back here and get a job,
and then just return. Yeah, I guess it depends on the degree that they get. Exactly. I guess that's a big thing. Like for instance, my husband's niece, she went to law school, so the laws. If she came here, she has some base, but the laws here would be different, and the bar, you know what I mean.
True.
So
I
guess it depends. But technology, that's transferable. Which would be great. But it's up to them. I'm not going to push them whatever way. I did try to move there after college, actually. I lived there for 9 months. I worked 3 out of the 9 months. And I loved living there, but it's different. They get paid like a quarter of what we make here, so you're used to certain things, I guess, when you grow up here, so I ended up coming back here. But I tried it. I always dreamed of living there. And my hope is to definitely, when I retire, spend more time there,
Yeah,
definitely.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, now that we know a little bit about where you all began, now it's time to talk about what you're doing, what you've done, which is, we're all very proud of you. And as Portuguese, as being Portuguese and trying to promote who we are, and that's a constant thing, you're just part of that team of people who are also promoting it. So we're very proud of it. And so with that, tell us how it all began, because there are plenty of people, and you know it and I know it, and we hear this all the time, of people going, oh, I always wanted to do this. Oh, this is something I've always wanted to do. So the thing is on this podcast, we just try to tell everyone how we do it and how they can do it, because all things are possible.
Exactly.
And so if you could tell us, Milena, how this all began for you, honey.
Sure, yeah. Basically about 10 years ago, I went out looking for a Portuguese cookbook written in English. I really hadn't given it too much thought. I did have one that I bought in the 90s in Lisbon, and it's still out there. And I forget what the name of it is. I think it's by Jean Anderson. I forget. It's an older one. I did buy.
Yeah, that's the first
one. I bought that one. Yeah, I bought that one in Lisbon years ago. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I have to buy this, But then, I didn't give it too much thought. Honestly, I didn't cook much when I was younger. I didn't cook at home with my parents, but I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So I bought the book. And then about 10 years ago, I wanted to put a basket together with the Portuguese theme, with a tray, a clay tray, and then a Portuguese cookbook and some olive oil. But I'm like, well, it'd be nice to put the cookbook in English, so find an English cookbook. So I went looking on the internet, and I went looking at the bookstore, and there was very few to choose from. And I was surprised. I didn't realize that there was not too many. And the one I was most impressed with was the Anna Patulea Ortiz book that she had at the time, about 10 years ago. That's the one I bought for the auction. And then when I noticed that, I came home and I was talking to my husband, and I was like, wow, it would be really nice to write a cookbook, because I'm very fortunate to have grown up eating this food. And also I spent a lot of time in Portugal, so I know what the food tastes like. I've had my aunts and cousins cook for me there. My sisters, great cooks. And I have an aunt here who's a great cook, a great baker. My mother was a great cook, my dad. And I was like, well, I have all these amazing resources. It would be a shame to not, make a collection of all these great recipes and that I grew up eating and share them with everybody, especially for the new generations. I mean, there's those people that, immigrated here and they know how to make these dishes. They don't necessarily need it. They can still read the recipe in Portuguese and understand it. But these new generations, they're not as fluent maybe in Portuguese, and also converting the grams. They're not used to measuring things in grams.
They have no time for it. They have no patience, no time.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a pain, honestly, to try and convert the grams and this and that. So I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to, write a book in English for anyone who wants to continue these traditions and, cooking this delicious food, and have it in the U.S. measurements, and they just pick it up, something easy, and mostly a lot of the ingredients you have at home. So I thought about that, and I talked about it, and I even mentioned it to some friends, and for years they joked about it because they thought it was never going to happen. They thought it was just just a dream that was never going to happen. And they'd be like, so did you start working on the book? I'm like, no, someday. And then one day, I started my Facebook page. Actually, my sister was on hospice at the time. And I decided to start the page because it was a good way for me to have a distraction, because she was very ill. And I was like, you know what? Life is short. If I'm going to do this, I have to do this now. So I started the page, and it kept me busy while she was going through a terrible, terrible time. So I was very surprised and overwhelmed at how excited people were to have these recipes. When I started sharing them, I got a lot of good feedback, responses, people messaging me, thank you for this recipe. I tried this recipe. I made it for my husband. He loved it. Reminds him of his mom and this and that. So that was kind of the last push I needed to finally start working on the book. So a couple of years after I started the page, I decided, well, I'm going to finally compile, all these recipes in a book, so something you can pick up and have at your fingertips. So basically it's the recipes that I have posted over the years. And I refined some of them, obviously, because my recipes that I wrote, the first few were not as well written as the more current ones, because you become better at recipe writing and the order of the ingredients and, the experience. So I had to scrub a lot of the old recipes and then make everything consistent. And then that's how, I ended up doing the book. It was basically because I saw the need. I hoped that there was a demand. I believed that there was. And once I started the Facebook page, I realized, well, yeah, there's a lot of people out there. And what blew me away is that I was just thinking of the immigrants here, in the U.S., but there's so many people in Canada, people in...
We're all over the world.
Mm-hmm. We're all Yeah, because we had colonies everywhere, and there's still Portuguese everywhere, and it's just amazing. A couple of weeks ago, I saw 3 of my books went out to Macau. It's like, wow, that's pretty neat. I know they've gone out to Australia, to South Africa, to Ireland, to England. So they're to Hawaii. So it's just amazing that, now with the internet, it's crazy. You can reach people worldwide. And that was my hope, that I could pass it on to those people that want to continue the traditions of Portuguese cooking. And it seems like a lot of the Portuguese that are no longer in Portugal, that immigrated or descendants of immigrants, they do have an interest in continuing, making these meals at home. And definitely one of the things I think that strikes a chord with everybody is when you make a dish that reminds them of someone.
Yeah, for sure.
It's huge, you know, like they're like, oh, this dish, you know, my mother used to make this. It reminds me so much of her. Or I didn't get the recipe from her, or I asked her for it and she didn't have measurements, and now I have all the measurements. And it's just amazing. You know, people are very grateful and appreciative. And that was just a great motivation, and, you know, just kind of like reassured me, like, this is something I should do, you know, and that's exactly why I did it. And now my daughters also have some family recipes here at their fingertips,
That's right.
you know, that they can follow, which is wonderful. You know, and I honestly, I refer to my book all the time, because even though I've made these dishes so many times, sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, do I use wine or beer in this usually? Like, because some things I like more with beer or wine, and sometimes I'm like, how do I make that again? You know, and instead of having to call my mother, because she's 87 and she has a better memory than I do, like I can call her and say, I'm like, did you use beer or wine? And it's like, oh, it's a pleasure. I'm like, she remembers better than I did. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. So I find myself referring to it because I can't memorize every single recipe all the time. Some things I know by heart, but then some things I'm like, oh yeah, do I do this way or that way? And
it's funny you're saying that, but the other day I'm just laughing even more here because that happens with me too, and with me it happens a lot with when I'm making rice pudding, because that's my go-to recipe, and and the whole thing is I have like so many different recipes that I have
different ones,
rice pudding many different ways that sometimes I'm like, oh, do I want my Lariana's way of doing it, or
right.
I want my Aunt Lalia's way of doing, and there's different ways, and it's true. It's wonderful, and it's a wonderful thing. You know what? And I know Angela and I have talked about this, and I think it's a wonderful thing that we're showing our daughters something that we're doing, and that we are not only leaving a legacy for them in what we've done, that I mean, one day when we're long gone, it's still going to be around.
Yes, it's going to live on forever.
And we're also showing them, you know what, these things are possible. If you want to do this, look, mom just did it. I did it. So they're seeing us as, you know, again, we talk about, Angela and I talk about this all the time. There are things that we do that we look at our girls, because all three of us have daughters.
Have girls.
And we look at them and we go, you know what, we want them to be able to not be afraid to try, to do, to experiment, to, you know, to be free to do those things. And I think that plays a very big part, and that's wonderful.
Yes, definitely.
No, so I totally agree. And I have to say, Milena, the bit about mothers, your mom remembering, it's the same deal. And I don't know how they remember things, because, you know, I have no idea. There could be dishes that they haven't made in years. And then you call them and say, you know, what was I've got this, and this, and what's the thing I'm missing? And then they'll just like tell you right away. And then, you know, the thing that I try to do too, that happens with whether I'm baking a dessert or cooking a dish, is I'll follow the recipe the first time and it comes out beautiful. Right. Yeah. And then I go to try and make it the second time and I think, I got this, I can do this from memory. Yeah. And it doesn't come out. And I'm like, dang it.
Yes.
You know, I haven't mastered it yet, you know?
Yeah. It happens to me all the time.
You know, what's funny is that people say, well, I don't need a recipe book. I don't need recipes. If you're a cook, you just know how to do it, so forth and so on. I say bull on that. I'm calling because you know what? A lot of it is memory. When you get older and you do the same dishes all the time.
Over and over. Yeah.
Over and over. Absolutely. But I think having a recipe is a place to start. And,
right.
And then take it from there.
I think it only works, like, for example, if you're kind of improvising and you end up making a sauce, you know, with the juices left over from whatever you've got. Okay, fine. But then try to replicate that, right? Oh, this is so good. Can you make it again?
Yeah.
Well, crap, I have no idea what I actually put in it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's me and the Portuguese steak. me, sometimes the sauce comes out fantastic, and then other times it's like, what? It's like,
yeah.
But
So
that's it. I have that problem with the Portuguese steak sauce. Sometimes I get it on point, and then other times I feel like I'm doing it the same way, and something just, I don't know what it is. It's funny. It does happen.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think yes, you can improvise, but if you want to repeat success and repeat that, you certainly need a recipe for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Speaking of the steak sauce, there's a restaurant in Cotovia, which is on the mainland near Sesimbra, kind of up the hill. It's where my in-laws, where my in-laws have their house, and so it's like literally around the corner.
Oh,
I think it's called Café Armando. I think, I can't remember.
Oh.
Anyway, they have their beef à portuguesa is to die for. It's just like phenomenal. Like you want to drink the sauce, right?
The sauce.
And so we asked the lady, and she recognized. She said, "Hey, do you guys come here like every year? I remember seeing, you last. Yeah, we're from California. Da, da, da. Hey, can you give us the recipe for the sauce?"
She won't.
Hey, why? Then you'll never come here again.
Yeah, they won't. I know. They won't give you even the restaurants here. You ask them and they're like, "Oh no," it's funny. There's some people, they just won't share that information. I have no problem. I mean, obviously I wrote the book. I have no problem sharing how I make things, but yeah, some people are, I guess if you have a business and it's a restaurant, you're competing, like with other restaurants. Yeah, you want to keep it.
Could be. Sometimes it's a pride thing. I know Maria has been, begging somebody to give her a recipe for the queijadas de feijão, right? Is that what they are? Yes. Someone please give Maria the recipe.
I want a good one too. I know. It's like, those are my favorite.
That is one of the things that I have been trying and experimenting and trying and experimenting. Yes. And I just cannot get it right.
No, Maria, I have the same problem. I've been making the tarte feijão because I figured, okay, maybe once I get the tarte feijão, I can get the little tartlets, right? And it's still not the texture that I want. And I'm like, what is it? Yeah. So I want a few different recipes I have to try.
Yeah.
But
and
there's
something missing. There's something absolutely missing in it. And they're not.
I don't know if it's the coconut, because some people put coconut in them. But I don't like
no coconut. And you know what's funny is, and I get this, when we're in Portugal, the butter, the eggs, the milk, they're different. So when we come here, we're not going to replicate it because there's no way we can. We can get close. But it bothers me because I'm just like you, obviously, because I have we're both the same. Someone wants the recipe, I'm going to give it to you. I mean, it's like, this is what we're doing because we're trying to preserve these things. But there are some people who just don't get that. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I've shared this with Angela, but I've had some messages. I've had wonderful messages from people like you also. Yes. Just really sweet people. There are really, really amazing, beautiful people out there. But then every once in a blue moon, you get a real not so nice person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's all we're going to say. Not so nice. And when we shut this off, folks, we'll talk about that and say what we really want to say. But right now,
when you have to keep that feisty Portuguese girl under control.
We're going to have to keep it under. Not so nice. I've had actual people tell me that how dare I share recipes, that these recipes need to stay.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
I haven't had that.
Beyond me. Beyond.
Oh, no, I haven't had that. But that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you don't want these recipes to die. You want them to live on. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, if nobody shared and wrote these down, what would happen? Eventually we wouldn't be making this stuff anymore.
And I also don't like the fact of, and we're going to, now I'm getting upset now. Now I'm thinking, and it's when asking people for recipes and they'll go, "Oh yeah, querida, no problem. I'll get that." Yeah. And then they kind of omit important steps.
Oh, an important ingredient.
Like deliberately sabotaging the recipe.
Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I get most of my recipes from my aunt, who she just shares it complete, like she tells me all her little tricks and secrets, and my mother too, like they tell me everything. Like my aunt has all these little techniques. Like she, as far as baking, she is the best. Like that, I know. Like she still lives in Gloucester, and people will ask her to make, if it's a shower or some kind of party, they go to her. Can you make a Molotov? Because nobody can make a Molotov like her. Her pon vlat, nobody can make, you know what I mean? So it's like, she's the go-to person over there, when they want like a Molotov and a pon vlat, because she's just like, I don't know, she's got the magic touch, but she has little special things that she teaches me that she does for them to come out, so good.
And you know what? And you're blessed to have that aunt. And as I am, I have my aunt Lalia that thank God for her. Because it's the same thing. But there are other people who'll go, oh, I know what you're doing. Oh, do you have this recipe? And I'd be like, oh, I don't have that one. Oh, here's my recipe. Here's the recipe. And you go, oh my God, great. So you spend all the time and effort to put it all together, and then it's not even.
And it doesn't come out.
But that's okay. This is how you learn, folks. So for those that are listening and are thinking to myself, and I know you're out there because we know we've seen messages from you guys of saying, oh, I'd love to put a cookbook together. These are the things that you'll have to face. And these are the things that you'll come across. But it shouldn't be something to deter you from doing what you need to do.
No. Maria, I try to focus on my goals, and everything else around me, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going to do with it. The noise around me doesn't really matter. It's just, I just keep going forward, basically.
Well, it's a big world. There's room for everything. And there's room for everything. And there's room for creativity. If you, like to have different twists on recipes, then, like David Late, the New Portuguese Table, or even Jeremiah Duarte Bills.
They're very creative.
Yeah, his book isn't out yet. Yeah, his book isn't out yet. But if you look at his recipes that he posts on his Facebook page, and he'll tell you, typically this is made with this ingredient, but I decided to do it this way.
Switched it up.
Which, great. I'm sure it's delicious. I can't wait
for his book. I cannot wait.
I know.
Yeah, it's going to be be Yeah,
oh my
definitely.
God, I can't wait. Yeah,
there's definitely a trend, even in Portugal, you see that. Like, people are this swaying to that, more modernization of some of these dishes, moving away from some of the traditional. I like both. I don't want to lose the traditional. I'm very much a traditional girl, but I can appreciate, adding a new twist to something. I think, they make some beautiful pieces of food out there, nowadays. And I think that's wonderful. That's what, some of them are artists, and that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right, so let's get into some of the fun questions about your favorites.
Yes.
So what is your, I don't think we've actually asked this particular question, but what's your favorite thing to make? Not necessarily eat, but what's your favorite thing to make?
Okay, I like to make, I guess I would say probably, I like to make desserts a lot. But I like to make feijoada. That's one of my favorite dishes, or like a cod. I love to make baked cod and batata murro. I just love making those that very traditional, very Portuguese, and they're not difficult to make, and they're super, super tasty. Tasty. Yeah. Those are some of the dishes I like to make the most, and I love to make dessert. I love making serradura. I love making sweet rice, which honestly, I had never made sweet rice until a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah. You would never believe it. I never made sweet rice until maybe 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's my go-to.
Yeah, my mother would make it. My sisters would make it. And they would sit there for an hour stirring, because the way we make it, we add a lot of milk. That's the way it's typical from my region. Everyone, from the Figueira, Coimbra region, we pretty much make the arroz doce the same way, and we don't put the eggs in it. And we just add the milk very slowly. So I just have memories of my sisters and my mom at the stovetop stirring and then just talking and having conversation and stirring like for an hour. And that's pretty much what it takes to make. So but I've fallen in love, and I honestly did not love a horseradish unless it was warm. And now I've grown to just love it. I love making it. I love decorating it, and I love eating it. So I'm kind of like becoming addicted to it, when I used to not pay that much attention to it, to be honest with you. But I do love making a horseradish now, because I like to get creative with the decoration, especially if it's a special occasion or a holiday. I have a lot of fun with the cinnamon. I like to do that a lot.
I always was amazed at how precise that the women could get the lines and the designs, and they just use their fingers, right? You just use your fingers. Yeah. My mother, I guess she used to be. She tells me that when she was younger, I don't know if it's common, Maria, like in the Azores, but I know our region, when there was a wedding coming up, a week or two before, the family of the bride and the friends would go and deliver. They used to make platters and platters of a horseradish to give to the guests. Yes, nice. It's a beautiful tradition. So my mother used to get called upon, like, when she was younger. She's like, the young ladies would go deliver it. I guess you would put it in a cerveza in a tray, and put it like in a basket and cover it with like a little tea cloth and deliver it. And my mother was always one of the ones to stay behind, because she was always called upon to decorate it, because she used to do a very good job of decorating with the cinnamon. She told me that story all the time, because and I think I kind of get that from her, because I love decorating. It's kind of funny. I'm like, I must have gotten that from her, because she said, like,
got that gene.
Yeah, I got that gene, because she's like, it was always, they'd have me stay behind decorating instead of delivering the trays of rice. But it's a very beautiful tradition. And then I guess from what I understand, you would go back, a few days later to get the tray back, and the guests would put money like as a gift to the bride and groom on just a little something, you know what I mean? But it's very cute. It's a tradition that was very typical from our region. I know some regions do that, but I don't think not all of Portugal. But it's a very cute. I love hearing that story. My mother tells me all the time. It's really nice.
That is cute.
And so then
it's funny how every region is so different. That's the other thing that I've discovered. Like, somebody will be like, well, you're not supposed to put that and that. And I'm like, well, in my region, that's how we make it.
Yeah, I hate that.
And I think it has to do with what you had available. Like,
I think that's more like it, Milena. I think it's what they had available. I had a message sent to me the other day, and the question was, they had a family recipe of rice pudding, but it had more water than milk. And so the question to me was, is that even right? And is that traditional? And so I wrote back and I said exactly what you're saying now. And that is, you know what? Maybe in her family, where they were from, they did not have enough milk.
It wasn't on a farm or something.
Exactly. Not everybody lived near the farm. Not everybody had, could get as much milk as everything.
Yeah.
So it really, I think you're right. It's based on what they had in their cupboard.
Yeah. So they would improvise or use what they had. Yeah, that's what I think. But so to say that this recipe is wrong or right, I don't think people can necessarily say that. You know what I mean? Because
I agree.
They're a different region. And I mean, my book, I definitely cook the way, is typical of the Figueira da Foz region, of the central Portugal region. A lot of people from that region, they'll be like, you cook exactly like I do. We have a very, we don't use crazy spices. You know what I mean? It's a very simple form of cooking. And it's very typical of what I grew up eating, and which is, very influenced by obviously the sea and the region of Figueira, Coimbra, that whole region over there, the central Portugal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's the other question we have, Angela?
What's your first food memory?
Mm-hmm. Oh, gee. Oh, you really want to know?
Yes. Very first.
I'm trying to think. I mean, like, does baby food count?
Can you remember when you were a baby?
I know, like I just remember when I was small, I used to love the Gerber banana. You know, the Gerber banana.
That's funny.
That's like when I think of being small, like that was like my favorite thing.
Not pepingas? You did not have pepingas?
You know, I honestly do not remember. I don't remember.
Maizena. Oh yeah.
I do not remember that.
Really?
I don't remember. I'm sure my mother must have given me that, but I don't remember that.
Yeah. I didn't have that, Maria.
You didn't have Maizena?
No, I mean, you got to remember, I'm third generation, so we were very Americanized. Yeah.
I'm an old lady.
I was born.
All of you, God in heaven. You know, it's just, you know, I'm like, yeah, my girls are, this is.
See, I was born here as well, and it was in Gloucester, and there's not as big of a Portuguese community, so I don't even know if they had stores that carry that there. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Because actually
Gloucester did have a Portuguese community, but not as big, huh?
It does, but it's much smaller, and I'm not sure that they had. I know my aunt, when she comes here, she stocks up, you know, at the Portuguese stores around here because they really don't have the stores like we do over there. And back then, they probably didn't have much. I'm imagining that's probably why. Yeah. I did give the Neshtun to my daughters.
Yeah, we got
set a lock to my daughters.
Yes. See, that was already.
How about tule creme? That I remember when going to Portugal, having the tule creme.
What's that?
It's like I think it's like a hazelnut spread. It's like a chocolate hazelnut spread. Oh. Yeah, I remember that vividly. And I remember the one thing that I remember very vividly from vacationing in Portugal when I was young is getting the milk in a plastic bag, and then we used to have to heat it up.
Wow.
And then the natas would come to the top, and you'd scrape it off the top. I remember that so vividly. And I can remember the little pan that like my sister would heat the milk up in for me and stuff. I remember that so vividly.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's pretty neat. That I remember very well.
Yeah.
Very cool. So anything that you will not eat?
Yes. Oh boy. I was thinking about that today. All right. One of the things I could not bring myself to eat is the perceived.
Okay.
Do you know what those are? They're like goose. What is it called?
Yeah.
Goose barnacles.
Barnacles.
Yeah.
Barnacles.
Honestly, those are very popular at the restaurants in Figueira because we have a lot of seafood restaurants.
Yeah.
And I've had them in front of me, and I cannot bring myself to eat those. My husband will eat. He's tried them because he at first wanted to try them. But one day we went out to eat, and it was in a big platter of seafood. We were with some friends, and he actually tried it, but I can't bring myself to eat those. I can't. Or linguiça de bacalhau, like codfish tongues.
Codfish tongues? Yeah. I got you there on that one. Yeah, that's a little different.
I didn't realize codfish had tongues.
That's what they call them, linguiça de bacalhau. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because here, I know, Angela, you haven't seen Portugalia yet, but the next time you come up, you are going to go there. And they have, like, in the very beginning, before you get to the real nice codfish that comes from either Newfoundland or Norway, they have like little bits and pieces of codfish. So they have like codfish cheeks, and then they have like bits and pieces that fall. I don't know how it is. And they also have sometimes the codfish tongues, the linguiça.
I can't eat that. Yeah.
And I even go, oh, please. They always tease me because I don't care for it. And they'll go, oh, Signora Maria, can I want a lingua? No, I don't need a lingua. No, thank you.
No, I'll pass on that.
I'll pass on that too, honey.
And then I love feijoada, which like dobrada is feijoada with a tripe. I always make just the feijoada. I won't eat the tripe. Although I've tried it and it doesn't taste bad, but it's the thought of like what it is, the tripas. Like I'll avoid that as well. Yeah. So those are a couple of things. Yeah.
That's
I hear you. It's a texture thing for me, at least.
Yeah.
With the tripe. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things. It's funny. One of the things you mentioned that you like to make cerradura. I've actually never had that. So there's a lot of things I've never had.
Yeah.
So
you have to have that. It's delicious.
I always try to try something new. And it's funny. The first time I ever went to Portugal was in 1998, and I was staying with a cousin of mine. And every time we went somewhere, I would try bacalhau a different way. And sometimes I wouldn't like it. And she's like, why did you order it if you didn't like it? And I said, well, I don't know if I like it or not. I'm trying to figure
try it.
You know,
right.
It's like that one movie with Julie Roberts where she didn't know how she liked her eggs. So she made eggs like all different ways and figured out what she liked. I was trying to figure out, which way I liked my cod.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's so many different ways to have it, So, yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
A lot of things. Well, we've actually come up on our time.
Have we really?
Yeah, we've been going about a good 50 minutes already. And so,
I was going to say before we come to anything left. Well, what's in the horizon? What are people going to expect from you, Milena? What are you working on now, sweetie?
Well, right now I'm just, trying to concentrate on, getting my book out, getting the word out. You think everybody knows about it, but everybody doesn't know about it yet.
Right.
It's funny, they'll be like, oh, I wrote a book. They're like, you did? Even people that are friends of my husband or now, it's kind of starting to get out there, but there's still so many people that don't know about it. So I'm going to focus, on pushing the book, getting it out there, seeking other avenues, maybe getting it out in more stores, because I have it out in a few stores here locally, but maybe in other states. I want to try to look into that and just let people know about my book. That's the most important thing right now. And I'm going to continue with new recipes on my Facebook page. I'm going to, sometimes I'll post some of the old recipes, but I posted them so many times, I'm like, I want to focus on learning how to make some new dishes and getting those out there. Like one of them that's on my list is I want to make feijoada transmontana because I think it's delicious and I know I can make it. So that's one recipe I want to focus on. Also alcatra. I know I can make that. I have a friend, who shared a recipe.
Be very careful. When I made the alcatra and I posted that I made it, I had a lot of people from Terceira sending me messages telling me to stay out of it.
Oh my God!
Really?
Stop. Well, you know what? You should really
very territorial. Very territorial.
You should really cook them off and make it in the crock pot. How about that?
I know.
And let me tell you, it comes out delicious. So all you critics out there.
What's funny is I'm going to talk about alcatra because I know a lot of people that are from Terceira. So of course I had said, I'd love to be able to do that. And they said, well, you need to have the dish for it, the clay pot.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, no problem. But so I was looking at getting a clay pot and I ended up getting the black clay pot.
Yes. Yes.
The ones that are already, they've been treated so that you don't have to soak them anymore and all that. But it's still a clay pot, but it's just, it's the black one. It's the black version.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my alcatra in that and it came out wonderful. It came out delicious. Yes. And I even had the sweet bread to go with it because you serve those two things together. And traditionally in Terceira, you serve those two together. So I had put them out there and some people had said, I make mine, this way. Other people are like, I make mine, whatever. And then I had a few people say, don't
share it.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't put it out there. Don't,
my God.
Stay out of it. You're from San Miguel. This is from Terceira. This is stay out of it. But you know what, so folks? I didn't listen. I didn't.
No.
But it's delicious. It is absolutely delicious.
Oh, it's very good. I've had it a few times. My friend has made it. And it's a funny story. I made a beef stew the other day. And it's not alcatra, but kind of the same idea. I put it in the wine overnight and, then I made it on the stovetop and I left it on there like 4 hours and I used a chuck roast, no bone or anything like that. You know what I mean? But It was like I wanted to make like a beef type of stew, but with the vindage or whatever. I didn't have a specific Portuguese name for it, but it's carne estufada. You know what I mean? It's just, you know,
it is carne estufada. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I had people say, you're using the wrong meat. That's not how you make it. It's made with pork. I'm like, if it's beef stew, it's not pork. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly.
Oh my
God. Like I said, beef stew. You know what I mean? So I like sometimes it's just like I just bought a piece of chuck roast and I just wanted it to be like fall apart in the vindage. That's all. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like,
let me ask you something. What does your husband think of all this?
Oh, he gets a kick out of it. He just like I don't know. Sometimes he's like my soundboard. I just, you know, sometimes like just, you know, tell him things and he just gets a kick out of it. So,
but you know, this is, I think, you know, again, Marie and I have talked about this before, but this is where you really have to develop some thick skin and not only not take it personally and get sad about it, but, you know, not get too pissed off about it because then you just won't want to do it. Right. Yeah. And we know that there are always going to be critics and no matter what you do, there's going to be one person out of 1,000 at least, right? If not 100, that is going to tell you what you did wrong about it or whatever. And you just, you know, like as Maria says, you just, okay, thank you, and move on, right? Now it's different. It's different if they have some constructive, like, you know,
that's I appreciate constructive criticism.
Like this is how I do it, and it gives it a bit of a different flavor.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Maybe I'll try it that way next time. But for someone to tell you to stay out of it because you're not from the right island, my God, I have some choice words for those people. Let me tell you. And I'm half from Terceira, my family, so I can.
Oh, you are okay.
I mean, ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. So I should never make a taco because I'm not Mexican.
I know, but I'm telling you, this is just it. It's. You're right. And again, we have spoken about this so many times. You really do have to get a harder outer shell. You can't let anyone tell you that you're doing something wrong or you're doing it wrong for them or you should have done this instead of that. Well, you know what?
Yes.
For those that say that, you go, you know what? There it is. Do it.
Yeah.
Go for it. If you think you can do it better, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Go right ahead.
Exactly.
And they don't because they don't. Most of them don't because they just like to complain. And I you know, it's but that's
like put your money where your mouth is. That's just like you know, when it comes to the community itself and clubs and organizations and the fact that people aren't joining and participating as much. And you always get the person that goes to the meeting and complains. And then you say, okay, well, can you join the committee? Can you help out with this? Oh, no, I'm too busy. Okay, well, then you just sit down and shut your mouth.
That's part of the problem. Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's that old saying, if you're not going to be part of the solution, then get out of the way. Right. I think I just combined a couple of sayings there, but never mind. Right. You know.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you for being on. You know, and we all know how life is busy, and we all have, you know, so many things that are on our plate to do. So for you to take the time to
anytime.
talk to Angela and I, as well as to let our listeners know, you know, what you're up to and all that we really appreciate it.
Yeah. For hopefully, I'll just keep plugging away, coming up with some more recipes for everybody. You know,
and for those of you looking for Milena's book, it is on Amazon, and you just got to type in "For the Love of Portuguese Food," and we'll also include a link to the Amazon listing in and also your Facebook page in the blog post and show notes. So, so best of luck, and
thank you.
Continue success.
Bigger and better. Absolutely.
Hopefully, you'll see another book soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I know right now I'm like, I just want to concentrate on this one, but definitely, you know, I want to work on new recipes, and then hopefully if things go well, you know, there'll be another volume coming out.
Absolutely.
It's all good. I got one goal accomplished. This is huge for me. You know, if I do another one, wonderful. But even if I don't, this is already, it's huge. You know, and my hope is that I didn't do it for myself, like I'm doing it for anyone who loves Portuguese food and wants to make it. And I really hope that the whole Portuguese community can be proud of the book that I put together and say, this is a good representation of, some of our most beloved recipes. And that's what I try to put in my book. I try to put the ones that I thought people would like the most, that the immigrants are most familiar with here, that a lot of them grew up with, that their families made, and that stir up those memories. That's what I try to put in this book. Not, like the one-offs, I left, the more, maybe the less recognized ones, I left those out for now. Maybe my next book, I'll put some of those other ones out there for people that want to venture into more adventurous Portuguese cooking. But for now, I try to stay with the most popular dishes that I think people would like to make themselves at home, that they enjoy when they go eat out, Basically, that's what I put together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Well, thank you again, honey. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Thank you.
Well, wasn't that nice?
Yeah, no, she's lovely. She really is nice.
The one thing we didn't talk about is that, I've known Milena for quite a long time.
Oh, really?
I have. She actually lives in the same town I do right now, and we both came from New Bedford. But one of her good friends she's much younger than I am. So one of her best friends there, Liz, used to work at a store that I managed. And on weekends, you would see Milena coming in because they were all going to go out, because they're all in high school. So I've known her since, I've known of her and all that. So she's very sweet girl.
Yeah, it's a small world, but
it really is.
I just love her example because it's just another showcase of there's room for everybody. And if you have an idea about writing a book or you want to write a cookbook, just do it. I mean, who cares if there's already some out there? And
absolutely.
Everybody's is going to be a little different. So I love that she went for it and that she did it. And from what I can tell, I ordered the book. I haven't received it yet, but from what I can tell, it's beautiful. So yeah.
I have it. I have the book. And because again, I'm going to support other Portuguese writers. And I think that's a no-brainer, folks. Whenever I see a new Portuguese cookbook on Amazon, I buy it because again, I'm going to support them.
Exactly.
I think the more we do that, the more there'll be more Portuguese cookbooks, the more they'll be in demand, the more that people will know about them, will be introduced to them, a whole different culture. Like Milena said, there are plenty of Italian, and we've talked about this, there are plenty of Italian cookbooks and plenty of other nationalities.
Oh my gosh, there's countless.
Yes.
Countless.
So, and for us, we can count them in, pretty much almost two hands. That's about it. And for the longest time, as she said, it was a non-Portuguese person who had written one of the first Portuguese cookbooks. So it's good. It's a really good thing to see Portuguese writing about Portuguese food, as well as for all of us to support them. And with that, it was hopefully everyone enjoys what we talked about,
and then goes and buys our book.
Exactly, and support all your other Portuguese authors out there.
Exactly,
which is a great thing to do.
Yeah. Anyway. But no, she was great. So another great conversation in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed it, and hope everybody has subscribed. Please leave us a review on iTunes. I know we ask this every podcast, and it may seem like it's not a big deal, but it's actually a really big deal to leave a review on iTunes. That's how people find us, and we get rated on iTunes. And so please, 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 even if it's just one sentence, leave us a review if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know you guys are listening. We see that you're listening. We have some of our podcasts that are being listened to, 700 times out there or 800 times out there. So we know you're listening, but follow us, so that you get to see when a new podcast goes live and you get to listen first. So just do that for us. You want to.
Just do it. Just do it.
Okay.
All right. With that, we'll say até a próxima.
Até a próxima.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks again for listening to our Portuguese Table podcast.
If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so on SoundCloud or iTunes.
And all episodes can be found on our website at www.ourportuguesetable.com.
You can also reach us at feedback@ourportuguesetable.com with comments, questions, or suggestions. Até a próxima! This episode is sponsored by Ginja 9, the Portuguese sour cherry liqueur from Óbidos, Portugal. Crafted by hand, made with love. For more information, visit www.ginja9.com.